Indonesian resistance. And that means that we know the Dutch from colonialism. And the story begins in 17th century. Well, in short, we can say that if you know the Dutch from colonialism, then you are the bad guy. That is the bad guy. In the textbook, I tried to find words of POC and Belanda. Next slide. This is for the 10th grade. The textbook for the 10th grade, so SMR, contains 11 words about POC and 68 words about Belanda, Dutch. Although it's just an introduction to history subject at high school. I think it's a new development because in the past, history subjects we started with the Hindu-Buddhist era, and then moved to the kingdoms, and then moved to encounter with the European and then colonialism. So this is something new. And for the 11th grade, Belanda, even more states in the history book, textbook. Belanda mentioned about 43 times. There is something, and it's all most of them talking about Dutch colonialism. And for the 12th grade, obviously there was no POC, but there was still a connection with the POC. And this 12th grade textbook is talking about the struggle of independence since 20th century onwards. So up until that's 1998. So very contemporary history for Indonesia. If we talk about colonialism, maybe some of you think that, oh, it starts with the POC, 350 years. That's, I think that's the myth. But it's the story begins in the first chapter with the first Dutch expedition under Cornelis de Houtman in 1596. In this book, it mentions that the Dutch initially came to trade and look for the sources of spices. But as you may aware, this expedition is not a peaceful expedition. The expedition was attacked by the Portuguese and the British, who were already there before the Dutch, and it was attacked by the locals in the north coast of Java, and it killed one of the local leaders in East Java. So it's not a peaceful expedition. It's not only, it's not really for trade. It was not difficult. And then the story continues with the establishment of the VOC. There were with the Portuguese in Ambon, in Maluku, and the establishment of the VOC headquarters in Ambon in 1611. And then they divided, soon after they divided the territory into three, Maluku, Banda, and Ambon. That's the earliest phase of Dutch colonialism, and there is a special discussion about the massacre in Banda in 1621. That is also something new. Before the history about the VOC in Maluku in this earliest phase, only mentioned in one or two sentences, and then the history of the VOC moved to Java, because that is that Jakarta became, the Batavia became the headquarters of the VOC for most of the VOC existence in Asia. And then the book divides the Indonesian resistance before the 19th century and after the 19th century. Maybe some of you are familiar with this division. This division is because the VOC is ended in 1799, and it's replaced by the Dutch, by a more formal state, Dutch East Indies, in 1800. So actually, the company era was ended before the 19th century, and it's so there was a shift from the rule of a company, which has army and administration, to a formal state, and it brought consequences. And in this new edition, particularly for the 11A textbook, there's a discussion on the impact of colonialism. It's economic, its impact in economy, urbanization, social culture, health, social mobility, racialism, development of racialism, and politics. So the book tried to talk about the whole structure of colonialism and its impact to the people. So not only for the aliens, but also for the people. In the next chapter, the textbook is focusing on nationalism, which fueled Indonesian struggle of independence in early 20th century. While at the same time explain the development of colonial state and its policies, including, for instance, I forget the name of in Indonesia, but politic ethics, the ethics politic. And it ends with the end of the Dutch East Indies in 1942. After the Japanese defeat the Dutch East Indies. But in this section also, the book discuss about the more organized struggle of independence, and it involved the Netherlands as a place where the nationalists continue their hierarchy, start to have networks, start building networks with other nationalist movements and other political movements in the West that support Indonesian independence and also influence nationalist movement in Indonesia. So it has a big impact. And the Dutch appears again after the Declaration of Independence, September 1945. This may be interesting era for us here because it's an issue that became a discussion, a public discussion publicly since 2 years ago. And we continue the struggle. We continue the struggle to defend our independence. And the Dutch sent the troops to Indonesia, and but this time Indonesia faced the Dutch with two policies. One is a physical struggle, and the second, and not the second, but physical and diplomatic struggle. And in the end, the conflict ended peacefully, not by physical struggle. We can talk about it later in the discussion. In conclusion, well, the Dutch is not and never be a footnote. It's not just a footnote in our history subject in school. And the purpose of history subject, history textbook in Indonesian schools is to is a part of the process of nation building. And mau tidak mau, the Dutch is part of the story. How we defend ourselves, how we struggle, and how we try to make connections, networks with the other with other nationalists, which eventually in 1950s after the World War II, it became more important for Indonesia to build our economy and to promote Indonesian interests. Well, I think that's conclude my presentation. I look forward for discussing the theme later.
Thank you so much. That was very, very insightful. And I think, especially to our non-Indonesian students sitting here, seeing how the colonization periods and the occupation periods were portrayed or are portrayed in Indonesian history books. I would now like to introduce our second speaker. Her name is Abi Hemayani, and she will talk about the Dutch history education and how it shapes society's knowledge on Indonesian occupation. I'd like to introduce her a little bit. She's a librarian at the International School Almere. Her passion and knowledge for history has allowed her to maintain an organized and enriching library where knowledge is accessible to everyone. She obtained her master's in history, the first one from Universitas Gadjah Mada in Indonesia. Her research topic was on hunting of Japanese tigers in the 19th century and the rise of conservation awareness in the 20th century. And her second master's was from Leiden University in colonial and global history, where she focused on diplomatic history between Buton Sultanate and the Dutch East India Company between 1613 and 1695. So without further ado, let's welcome
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. It was very last minute that I was contacted by ISS, but I managed to write something last night. And I don't have any slides, so I really apologize for that because I work in a school, and this is the towards the end of our study year. So you can imagine it's a zoo over there. Let's put it that way. But anyway, I will try my best to present my reflections about being Indonesian who studied history and then working in the Dutch education sector. So this put me in a very interesting position, and I think a lot about it for the last 2 to 3 years, and that's why I accepted this invitation, because I would like to share these views and these reflections. And yeah, maybe one day, next week, next month, or next year, we could have another discussion somewhere in Netherlands or Indonesia. Now, I'll begin my sort of speech. It's bridging histories, reflections on Dutch colonization in Indonesia. Good morning, honorable Indonesian scholars and faculty. It is a great honor and privilege to stand here before you today to reflect on a subject deeply intertwined my personal heritage and professional life. As an Indonesian who has studied the complexities of our history and of Dutch colonization in our homeland, and who now works in the Dutch education sector, I am uniquely positioned to offer a nuanced perspective on this shared history. This dual identity brings me both blessings and challenges to navigate throughout my personal and professional life. And while I am blessed to have the opportunities to have multiple approaches, multiple perspectives on this matter, I must admit that there are times where I feel really torn at the crossroads of different narratives and sentiments. And to begin with the historical context, let's set the stage with a brief overview of the Dutch colonization in Indonesia. And as we all know, it all began with the stories of VOC, as already mentioned by Pauli, in the 17th century. And that initially commercial venture of VOC evolved into a form of colonial administration that lasted until our independence in 1945. The VOC established a monopoly over our homeland's lucrative spice trade. It was already established. We had, before the VOC arrived, we already had connections with traders from Middle East, India. And then the Europeans sort of came and interrupted this already established network. That monopoly, in the end, led to the exploitation of resources and labor. And over time, Dutch control extended to various regions of the archipelago through treaties, military conquests, and alliances with local rulers. Well, it's a fact that we should see that this colonial past has its own colors, and they are certainly never black and white. It is complex and multifaceted, reflecting both the economic exploitation and the infrastructural developments that it brought along. And one of the most evident aspects of Dutch colonization was the economic exploitation. The cultivation system, or like what we know, the culture stelsel, introduced in the 19th century, required local farmers to grow specified cash crops, such as tea, coffee, um, for export necessities, for export commodities. And this system brought significant profits to the Dutch company, but often at the expense of the local population, who was forced as labor, and they also experienced land alienation and food shortages. From my perspective as an Indonesian, this system exemplifies the profound asymmetry in colonial relationships. It underscores how the wealth generated by colonial enterprises often came at a great human cost to the colonized country. However, working within the Dutch educational framework, I recognize that this period is taught and perceived differently. The economic advancement and infrastructure developments, such as roads and railways, communication, are often highlighted as a dual age contributions. It's it's beneficial for the foundation of a modern Indonesia, but it is born out of a history of exploitation. And then colonial rule also led to complex cultural exchanges. The Dutch brought Western education, legal systems, and governance structure, which transformed Indonesian society in a profound way. These changes introduced new ideas and institutions, but let us also remember that it has disrupted traditional practices and social structures. As I navigate both Indonesian and Dutch cultures on a daily basis, I observe that this cultural legacy remains a double-edged sword. In Indonesia, there is a sense of pride in having assimilated and adapted this influence into a unique national identity. But conversely, in Dutch narrative, there's often an undercurrent of justifying colonial rule through the supposed civilizing mission, which can be uncomfortable to reconcile with the historical realities of oppression and resistance. The history of Dutch colonialization is also a history of Indonesian resistance. From early rebellions against the POC to the nationalist movements of the 20th century, Indonesians continuously fought for their rights and autonomy. Figures like Bung Karno, Bung Hatta, Diponegoro, Cut Nyak, and other national heroes that we recognize today are celebrated as national heroes who symbolize the struggle for independence and justice. And reflecting on this from within the Dutch education sector, I am content to see the increasing recognition of these resistant movements. Yet, we must admit that there is still much work to be done in integrating these perspectives fully into educational curriculum. It is essential for both countries to promote the understanding that colonial history is not just a story of European expansion and indigenous resilience and agency that was led by well-known figures. Because within the complexity of our shared history also lies countless untold stories of those who simply did their best to live another day on earth. I will move on to my contemporary reflections. The legacies of Dutch civilization continues to shape contemporary Indonesia in various ways. A small example, our modern legal system and aspects of its education and its administrative practices bear the imprint of Dutch colonial rule. However, these influences are interwoven with Indonesia's rich indigenous traditions and post-independence developments. And from my vantage point, this hybridity presents both opportunities and challenges. In Dutch context, there is a growing awareness and willingness to engage with the colonial past critically. Initiatives are aimed at addressing historical injustice and fostering dialogue are steps in the right direction. You may agree or not with this point of view, but so far this is how I feel. And to have a quick look at Indonesia in Dutch curriculum, I will briefly explain the key topics in both primary and secondary education that I gather mostly from colleagues who work in both levels of education. In Dutch primary education, the topics about Indonesia provide the foundational knowledge of its geography, the cultural diversity, and a simplified overview of its colonial history. Their students learn about Indonesia's status as the world's largest archipelago, and its diverse ecosystem, the traditional customs, and and the basic narratives of around the Dutch colonial rule are also introduced, including the spice trade and the establishment of POC. But it's not as deep as they're going over to the middle Bayer school, the secondary school. And then when they're at the secondary school, the curriculum delves deeper into Indonesia's history and contemporary issues, with a focus on critical analysis. The key topics include a detailed study on the POC's impact, the cultivation system, the struggle for independence and the Persia period, examining the violence and the complex dynamics during the decolonization process. And students are also encouraged and guided to analyze the post-colonial developments, including the political changes, economic growth, and contemporary challenges such as the environmental sustainability and social issues. Now, in February 2023, just last year, the Committee on Strengthening Knowledge of the History of the Former Dutch East Indies, or Commissie Verspreking Kennis, Geschiedenis Voormalig Nederlands-Indië, under the leadership of the former Minister of Welfare, Health and Culture of Netherlands, Mariette Boesemakers, published 80 pages recommendation for the government to make education on the history of Indonesian compulsory in Dutch schools. This comes in response to increasing calls to acknowledge the complex colonial history between the Netherlands and Indonesia. And the Council highlighted a gap in the educational curriculum regarding comprehensive coverage of colonial history, particularly focusing on Indonesia. Current education on this topic is deemed insufficient and often presents a limited perspective. And recommendations suggest a holistic approach to teaching this history, which would include the positive and negative aspects of Dutch colonialism, the impact on Indonesian society, and the legacies that continue to influence both nations. And schools would be required to integrate these topics into their history lesson, ensuring that students understand the complexities of colonial history and its long-term effects on both the colonized and the colonizers. The goal is to foster a deeper understanding among Dutch students in their country's colonial past and to encourage critical thinking about historical events and their modern implications. And that recommendation aligns with broader societal reflections on the Netherlands' colonial past, including the debates on how history is remembered and taught, and how this influences current views on race, identity, and international relations. The Dutch government is expected to review the recommendation and consider its implications for the national curriculum. And yeah, this review will of course include consultations with educators, with researchers, with Indonesian scholars, I believe, Indonesian historians, and community leaders to ensure a balanced and as best as possible accurate representation of history. While the deepening efforts of our shared history in the Dutch national curriculum is progressing, I often reflect and stumble upon a question to myself. What shall I do as an Indonesian, as a commoner? As just an Indonesian roaming around the Netherlands? In my professional and personal roles, I have the unique opportunity to bridge Indonesian and Dutch perspectives on colonial history. So whenever I encounter a situation where I'm involved in a conversation or discussion about colonization and colonialism, I strive to foster understanding that can transform the historical wounds of colonialism into opportunities for learning and growth. In conversation, for example, with my Dutch husband, friends, colleagues, and students, I emphasize that it does not mean that we should erase our past, but we do need to confront the uncomfortable truth honestly and with an open mind, and using it as a foundation for a just and the equitable future that we want to see together. A future that focuses on humanity and mutual growth rather than wasting our time to go against each other. Now, to wrap up this small note, reflecting on Dutch colonization in Indonesia from my dual perspective reveals a complex and multi-layered tapestry of exploitation, cultural exchange, resistance, and enduring legacies. It is a history that calls for critical engagement and thoughtful dialogue, both with Indonesia and the Netherlands. As I stand at the intersection of these two worlds, I am committed to advancing a more inclusive and empathic understanding of our shared past. It is the least I could do to honor the resilience of those who came before us and paved the way for the world that we are in today. Thank you. Sorry, I really don't have slides, but I have a list of resources if you want.
It was really great and insightful. Thank you so much, Ms. Mayor. I think especially as you know, a lot of Indonesians here living in the Netherlands, maybe you guys can also relate to some points about the dual view, the Dutch view and the Indonesian view on our shared history. And I think it is really important to keep the dialogue going. And we are going to have that dialogue actually right now. It's very exciting. If you guys have any questions, that will come after this case study session. So This will be around a 15-minute discussion, and this case study is, as I said, it's based on the Bersiap period between 1945 and 1947. I would like to give some context into what Bersiap is, maybe if some of you don't really know what it is. Bersiap in Indonesian literally means to get ready or be prepared. The Dutch refers to the Bersiap period as a violent period during the Indonesian National Revolution. During this period, thousands of European, Eurasian, non-Indonesians, and Indonesians as well, they were killed under the assumptions of being collaborators with the Dutch. This violence led to forced repatriation of a worldwide Indo-European diaspora. And I was thinking about what you said, Ms. Hendayani, on this idea of decolonization, and how, like, an interesting word that is. How the Dutch can view it differently and how the Indonesians can view it differently. So I would like to maybe start off the discussion with how do Dutch and Indonesian curriculum portray this masa Bersiap in 1945 till 1947?
Bersiap is never a part of Indonesian narrative during the revolution. We do have, we do discuss about social revolutions that happen in several places in Indonesia, like in North Sumatra and in north coast of Java. It's actually, for me, as a historian, it's part of this social revolution that that happened after the colonial structure ended in 19. It's a process that we can see that it's from 1942, actually from to 1949. But the violence, yes, the violence happened between 45 to 49. And it's not just the Eurasian or the European or non-Indonesians became the victim of this violence, but everywhere in I think the most part where the Dutch or the big city where the Dutch send their troops to the area, that's the most that happened, that violence happened during that revolution.
To add some remarks about the masa Bersiap. Well, I think it would be different when you discuss it with students at the university level and how it is taught at schools when you're dealing with, let's say, children from 4 to 18 years old. And I asked some of my colleagues to what extent that this period are taught in the classrooms. And yeah, because we're dealing with young children, it will never go into a very detailed explanation like what we read in academic books. But it is part of the aftermath and also connected to the World War II situation, where they mentioned something about the attack to the Dutch people and other Eurasian community. And I, to be honest, do not follow our national curriculum at the moment, so I cannot give any remark about that. But what I said before is a sneak peek from how it is from the world that I am in currently. And also, I'm currently working in an international school that works with not with a Dutch curriculum, but with an IB curriculum, international faculty. But my school is part of a Dutch education institution. That's why I still can get insights into how how Indonesia is being taught, is being considered their teaching activities. And I've checked into the IB curriculum. Of course, there's no mention about Indonesia, but because they only focus on the big stories, and when it comes to region, it takes big regions as well, like Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia. So it never really goes in depth in the curriculum that I'm working with at the moment. But then a lot of my students are Asian. We are actually not an international school, we're an Indian school. And in India, we have many similarities of history. Pharaoh was also there before the British took over. So topics like colonization is also I see that these young minds are really interested to really get into it. And in particular, last year they're really interested about slavery. It was, as an educator, it was surprising that they think about it. I thought they only thought about TikTok and friends. But yeah, it's nice to see this growing enthusiasm in a deeper discussion about colonialism, about slavery, because they start to feel that it affects their identity making process. And I know that we have wonderful history teachers at school who try their best to give a balanced narrative, but while at the same time also encouraging them to think critically and do not fall into biases or deep subjectivity in approaching these topics. And back to masa bersiap. When I was studying in Leiden, I knew that there was a long research going on about this period, 45 to 49. I'm not part of this research, but some of my friends from UGM are. And yeah, if you would like to discuss more about it or to know who's doing this thing at the moment, just feel free to reach out, and I can make some connections happen. Because this is not my focus when I studied. I focused on the Pharaohs and stuff. I was in the Den Haag National Archive reading the Pharaohs until I wanted to commit suicide. Don't ever touch that I got like really. It's a nightmare. Anyway. Yeah, I hope this small remarks contribute something to this discussion. And here is your microphone.
Thank you so much to the both of you. I think it was really interesting to see how different the perspectives between the Indonesians and, as you said, like your experience in Dutch school curriculum, the fact that more people are interested in these topics, not just for Siap, but also slavery, because they think more and more that it affects them up to today. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. And to my next question, we've also discussed about the term Persiap and how it is different from the Indonesian perspective and from the Dutch perspective. As you said, when you talk about from the Dutch perspective, it's more World War II related, post World War II, and Indonesia. Maybe like some people don't even consider that as a it's part of the process, but it's a Dutch concept, basically. So I know a few years ago, at the Revolusi exhibition and at Science Museum, Indonesian historian Boni Triana criticized the exhibition's use of the word Persia, noting that it does have a racist connotation because it doesn't take into account of the Indonesian side of things. So yeah, I wanted to hear more about you, from you, like in like Dutch curriculum, how do they describe, or in Indonesian curriculum, how do they describe the Persia period, and what significance does it have, that term Persia, on society?
Well, from what I remember correctly, when we're talking in the context of Indonesian curriculum, I think this period is let's say connected to the revolution physics, the concept of revolution, revolution physics, physical revolution. It's that was where all this physical struggle, physical struggle, war, and the efforts to be free, as a nation, were discussed. And also in our narrative, I think it's also used to grow the nationalistic views and patriotic feelings to be proud of a nation, which gave me a really mixed feeling as an Indonesian. And at some point, I wish I never studied history because of that. But and in the Dutch curriculum, I already mentioned, it's a link to a broader world history. So it looks like that it's trying to find balance by connecting the concept itself to broader issues. But in Indonesia, it feels like, yeah, we're going into the depth here. When we're talking about this, I hope the effect is burning your nationalism and patriotism, which is also good at some point, because as a nation, yeah, you need that. That's how you build a nation, without a common agreement that okay, we're proud as an Indonesian. Then what is Indonesia? Or what is being an Indonesian? I think, yeah, it's really complicated. It's very complicated. But I agree with Mas Boni that, yeah, maybe the best thing that they could do before the exhibition was to sit together with the Indonesian scholars, Indonesian historians, and experts in this period to come up with a new term that is more neutral. But yeah, I understand that everyone is busy, so we didn't have time for that. But it's a point that should be discussed. I mean, yeah, to find a new term. What will the term will be? I have no idea. It will be up to the experts in that period.
Well, Persian is not part of the curriculum, it's not part of the story of Indonesia during the revolution. In the past, the revolution only focused on heroism, physical struggle, and even the diplomatic struggle was kind of neglected. Only perhaps one or two paragraphs in our history in the past, in the SPP, for instance. But there's been development in recent history textbook that include social changes during the revolution. For instance, the role of women during that period. And if we talk about the social changes, it's a process. I think it's a long process that happened in Asia after the coronation, after the end of the Baru. But for the term Persian itself, I feel that there should be an honest dialogue between the two historians, because we cannot have one single narrative for that period, and even in some in some groups there is no single narrative about the revolution, and that means it's complicated era actually, because the whole structure was changed, and I think it needs more research about this era.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was very interesting. Also, like to see, like a lot of things are complicated, and we need to further dialogue together as Dutch and Indonesians, but also as scholars and as students in general. So to wrap it all up, and also I find it interesting that the times are changing. You know, people are getting more interested in it, and you said the Indonesian curriculum is changing. For example, the role of women, and perhaps discussion about Persia will change as well. So to wrap it all up, I would like to end with the last question: how do we move forward from this? So looking at these misalignments, differences in history education, specifically about Persia, what is the next step? So how do you think we can address these misalignments as Dutch and Indonesian students?
Well, for me, it's really the dialogue that I mentioned before. Dialogue between historians about certain topics in history. And one of them should discuss about the revolution era. Well, before, I think the Indonesian historians only part of the Dutch research of history. And I don't know what kind of, I wasn't part of any projects before, but I think it's more interesting to have dialogue in the same level between between the two historians, to not to address the issue, not to have a single narrative come out of this dialogue, but to know each other positions in historical narratives.
Yeah, and history is a knowledge, and it's stories of people and events. And while it's very interesting as a subject, it's in reality it's not so applicable in the society. You will always get people who will come to you saying that, yeah, we brought nice things to your country, to your country, so be thankful about it. But I met some people like that, by the way, and it was really amazing. But what I try to do when I communicate our history and how the Dutch and Indonesia is connected for so many centuries, from 15th, 16th, 17th century until now, is to invite them to think as a grown-ups, with a matter thought that it's the past. Yes, there's a lot of things going on there, and it's very complicated, and it still needs billions of euros and rupees to complete the research. That's it. But outside the academic context, outside the university context, we're seeing each other, we're dealing with each other as someone, as an individual who's, we're all doing our best to survive this inflation, for example. And while it's nice to have this discussion about our past, about the violent period, it's all in the past. Now let's the questions that I keep asking is, do you want to stay in the past or do you want to move forward? It's really good when you have the knowledge about the past and understand the complexity of it, because it gives you a lot of wisdom, and it trains us to think from multi-layered and multiple perspective, which is really good for our mind, I believe. But then when we're dealing with on daily basis, yeah, in the end we're just human, and we're shaping our stories at the moment to be told maybe by the next generation in the future. So I think together we have to focus on how we build the future that we want to see together, that we want to experience together. And that's really where we have to focus as scholars, as human beings, whatever labels that we put on ourselves.
Thank you so much. Yes, and in the future, we're also looking to, enhance dialogues like this, but also more relevant ones like in the present. And it's nice to see that change is already happening. Um, if you just see, for example, you guys right now sitting in this auditorium, it is something. You guys are interested in this, and we will have a discussion session later on, so that will be quite exciting. I'm looking forward to that. But now I would like to open the floor for a Q&A session. Yes. Yeah, the mic is not long enough.
Itu nggak ada orang yang bahasa orang Indonesia deh, selain orang Indonesia. Eh, dari sini aja.
Yeah, I think that's.
Okay, thank you so much. I love this event. I think PPI needs to regularly every year. Summit mean if you talk with your heart, if you think, if you feel with your heart, and I see in this event that everyone here come to experience that. And about colonization, it is not about Netherlands. It is not about Indonesia. It is not about America or any organization. It's about you. If you have good heart, if you have love for everyone, or you have Indonesian passport, or you have the Netherlands passport, it's no problem. Our problem now is a global problem. We have now challenging in the World War III. That means end of the world. And I think this event can contribute to make your heart open, to make your heart terbuka, bersinar, bercahaya kembali untuk kemanusiaan. And we have organized festival kepulauan, the Voices of Aspelago, 20 days. Of course, to contribute to community, to open your heart, to open your love to your sister, to your brother. In Indonesia, we have so many complex problems. And you are a student, intellectual, of labor, of come together, help Indonesia to get better. And kalau bukan kalian lagi, siapa lagi? Sekarang hancur lebur semuanya, tidak ada nilai, tidak ada hukum. And itu bukan masalah Indonesia aja, ini masalah global semuanya. And I hope this event bisa membuka hati kita semua. Terima kasih.
Thank you. You have a question.
I have a question. It's open for discussion. Like we already learned about like Persia and like the speaker already said what this Persia and blah blah blah. I'm just wondering like if because like in Indonesia history curriculum we don't learn about Persia, right? But like if we learn about Persia, like if we like communicate with the Netherlands government or like the Netherlands historian, just like to make sure like what is Persia and like we learn about Persia, will it like affect our relationship with the Netherlands? Like because now I don't know about Persia. What I know like historically just like yeah we got colonized, then we got this we got we saw this and this, but also like that's like the Indonesian Indonesian mixed Indonesian that like experience something that they also suffer and that they also like feel like negatively and like the Chinese descendant also like in the Persia period will it be like better for us to learn about this or is it better for us to learn about this like yeah it's like how the government right now.
Yeah, thank you. That is a very interesting question, actually. So if we learn about that, how would it shape the relationship between the two nations? And now we're also talking about Dutch Indonesians, for example, who have a different history that's not shared by us as well. So I was wondering if anyone of you wants to comment on that.
Thank you for for the question. For me, it's not just about the Persia. I think we need to study more about social impact of the revolution in Indonesia. This is not only about maybe it can be part of the study, but it doesn't have to be very special. And we need to know more about the period, not focusing on the politics or the political side of the revolution only. So we need more. Need more historians that study about that certain period from other aspects too. Could be from art, for instance. There was a student, I think, did research about propaganda, Indonesian propaganda during the revolution. So it's there's a lot to be discussed about the period, and if we want, I don't think it's what contribute to our relationship, Indonesian international relationship, is how can we know more about what we did together in the past, and how we move forward with this knowledge about this certain relationship, and how we can use historical resources, whether it's archives, photographs, everything, to be part of the projects that we are doing in Indonesia. So the past is the past. We already experienced it, but there is a lot of subjects that we do not know, and that is our chance to study more about the past, on how to make the relationship between the two countries better.
I cannot respond to the question about the impact between the Dutch and Indonesian relationship, but I would like to respond to another question about we need to know about it, we need to learn about it. Well, between me and you, yes, we do. It's not the responsibility of Indonesian scholars in the history field to learn about our history. We have a very long history offering centuries of period, and I would like to see, what I hope to see is that more and more younger generation of Indonesians are becoming more aware about our past. It's, yeah, I know that we're not going to sell it in the job market. Like, it will not get us the six figures paying job, but it's part of our identity as Indonesian, and it's it's part of understanding our roots and what happens uh, around it. And yeah, to spare some of our time and thoughts to understand our history, the complexity that comes with it. I believe that it will make us, to some extent, a better person. Because when you are able to think from multiple perspectives, you will not be easily being a judgmental person. That I tell this from my personal experience of meeting and having discussions with fellow educators or some of my leaders at the organization, and I see these traits in them. And yeah, I think we need more people like this, and it will make the world really a better place. So yeah, that would be my response, and I really like your question. It's very realistic. Thank you very much. Yes. Oh, sorry.
No worries. Thank you both, beautifully said. I think you were first.
Right, thank you for the opportunity. I love the last remarks about looking back from the past, we can wisdom for the future, and especially to see the history from one perspective. And I would have brought something up, something that I learned like a few years ago, the truth about Gandalf, about the forest labor in the 18th century. Well, yeah. If my memory doesn't fail me, I remember that Daniels forced the workers to make a roadway from Panarga that spent like 1,000 kilometers or so without pay. While in reality, there's actually paid the worker. There's also prepared the fund like around 30,000 ringgit. Then let's pay the manual to the manual to the and then manual to the local government. The local government, the Bupati, and the fund does not transfer to the workers. So what I'm trying to say is that we are during our like education about history, we always like antagonizing the Dutch. Oh, you are the sole perpetrator of this disaster, right? And we never took it back on ourselves. Oh, wait, after like after 1,000 kilometers, like there's no way this project will not be funded. Well, turns out it is, but well, the local government is like very corrupt, so we all like this. Turns out. Now, if we know that since we were in high school, we can like reflect to ourselves, right? We can reflect to ourselves. Oh, we have this past that takes up to like 1,000 of people died because of the forced labor because the local government did not transfer the money to the workers, and then a lot of people died because of it, right? And yeah, so you are a very great academia. So I want to know your opinion about it. If you were an educator, right? If you were an educator, you have the power to change something, how you tell the history to the students, to the young ones. What would you do about it? Well, you already mentioned about the relationship with the Dutch and the Indonesian. I want to know more about how the history would make it us to like reflect ourselves, because I believe that after we know about we have always been like this corruption led to death of many people, and it's not only in the hands of the Dutch, but we are also the accessory of the murder. Well, not accessory, even the perpetrator of that. I think we will have a better future that we can avoid that problem. I want to know what you think about it.
Thank you for your watch.
Well, it's if you take to Indonesian curriculum, of course, it's not part of the story. But because of the purpose of the history education at school, is to build our nationalism. If we, there is a several way to explain about. One of them that it happened under the colonial structure, and the colonial structure was established by the Dutch. That's so one could be one of the explanation. But there's so much happened during this colonization period, and we need to know more about the relationship between Batavia and the local government, and so the political structure, the social structure during that time. It's not just about the corruption, but what happened behind that. There are a lot of it needs a lot of, I think it's not it is a lot of discussion. And if somebody wanted to write about it, I think it will be a good it's a good source of discussion.
How I teach my students about that? I tell them the truth. Children learn best when we tell them the truth. That's what I experienced at school and also with my son. I challenge their ideas. Usually I start with, okay, what do you know about it? And then from their answer you can determine where you want to put your matter. So, and in the case of Indonesia, yeah, of course, that road needed a lot of money. There is money in there. There is money involved. It's just unlogical that it came up without money. But the problem that I see from studying those periods, and I see it also in the archives from the 17th century. When I went to all of those periods and archives, you could see how much the sultanates or the local kingdoms get every month from the VOC, for example. But then, yeah, it's never well distributed to the people. It ends at the royalty. That and whenever I see our colonial past, it always disturbs me that the problem lies in the local elites. It's they're the medium, the connector between the Dutch and the local, and then a little bit ping pong, like also in during the 45-59, the violence that also happened to the local elites. And in some areas, like in Bekasi, Karawang, and Pantura, I think, who did these people attack? The Lura and the family. So you see that there is a problem in the local elite level that we have to address when we look at our history. And let's be honest about it. Let's be honest about it. I know that it's not an easy task. I mean, we have so many temples and beautiful beaches and big kingdoms back then, Majapahit and their friends. But yeah, it's not as beautiful as we imagine in reality. A lot of people suffer because of the greediness of uh, a small group of people who happen to have the privilege to be to get the access to money. So, and I think if you look at the history books written by academics, historians, we can we can see that they use those resources. Now it really up to us whether we would like to recognize this. And yeah, this is our past, and sort of making us naked in when facing our past, our shared past as a nation, and discuss it with an open mind, like without discuss it like not like it never happened, but discuss it with the humbleness, with an open mind, and at some point let's agree to, yeah, what can we do after this? That's the question. That's the more important question. As part of the younger generation, I'm not that old. Uh, what are we going after this? Yes, I spent 15 years learning history from my S1 until master and then another master in Leiden. And I tell you, in that last year in Leiden, I was really split when I asked myself this question: what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this stuff? It's really nice and challenging, and really pumps your adrenaline studying history, going through all of those POC reports and other archives, and playing around with all the theoretical and philosophical journeys. It really pumps my adrenaline back then, but then turns out I wanted to be different. I started asking, okay, you have this research about this diplomatic history between a very small sultanate in eastern Indonesia and the POC. What are you going to do about it when you graduate? I couldn't find the answer. And then in the end, I decided, yeah, it's time for something new, I guess. So I really took a break, like 2 or 3 years. I didn't want to read anything about history until just like a year ago, when that interest sparked again, and I started to touch the history, the Indonesian history again. So yeah, in relation to that question, when we're dealing with that kind of situation, when there is the Dutch party involved, and then there is villagers, people who were forced to work. Let's not forget that there will be always a middleman. Let's not forget about that. And that is where we have to focus our discussion and encourage. What I would do, I would encourage my students to focus on that, on the role of that middle position. Find the people, track them, like hunting dogs. From there, you can build a narrative. That's one of the strategies that I would use. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Very well said, very informative. I think looking at the time, we have space for only one question. So I think, yeah, you were first.
As a third person, I can say that.
Oh, sorry, he was first.
Oh, okay.
But we will have more space. We will have more space for discussion after.
Okay. Thank you. I'll give Thomas in advance. I'll start my PhD journey in my for this discussion, I don't know why you, Larsen, propose Russia for our discussion. I don't know why. Because in our curriculum, we don't know about Russia. And Russia is produced by Dutch. You know that? But nothing knowledge is forbidden. We need to know about Russia. But Russia is the terms from the Dutch government. You know that?
Yeah.
You know that? Okay, Sati. I think you need, definitely, you need to thinking about this. Why we need to propose Russia? And in May, I met with Palmira Westerly. You know Palmira Westerly?
Yeah, the daughter of
Daughter of Westerly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he provide the kindness of the Westerly in discussing into you know that. And I think that there is some agenda from the Dutch government to the maybe the PPI or I don't think for the proposed Russia to the scholar of Indonesia. I don't know what about it, but I think for the our discussion we need to clarify our relationship today. You know, in 2022, King William Alexander said forgiveness to the government of Indonesia about Russia. So our relationship is good. And we need to build truth of our relationship. So we need to convey our truth. There is no error, there's not an oration, and the argument is suffered. But we have a suffered training for 350 years ago. So we need to clarify and we need to maintain the truth story. But you know, 1,000 books, 1,000 archives from the scholars in Indonesia and in Netherlands by the Indonesian historian and Dutch historian made some literature for the truth. But you know, the history to maintain and the history education to maintain in our country by the power. You cannot produce the history if you don't have power. You don't have power. So you need to have a power. You need to become a president of Indonesia and become to Ministry of Education to produce the history. You know that? Where is the Tan Malaka story? Where is the Sahli story? Where is the others local hero story? In 45 to 47, it's disappeared because we don't have power. So I think we need to fetch the whole and we have a power in Indonesia to produce the true history. You know, and I think you as a council of information and social cultural function and the you need to convey the new story for Indonesia, new story from the truth story. I think, yeah, but at least the word okay. I think is for our session. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insights. I think this is exactly why, right? We need to have conversations like this, and making events like this is not to erase, for example, the Indonesian side of the history, but it's more because, for example, a lot of Indonesians coming here, they meet Dutch people, and then they realize that, oh, they have a different, they have a different concept. They're like, Garcia, for example, why? What is this? And I think that's why it is really important to together sit down and say, how do we proceed with this? And yeah, I agree. I think we should also talk more about Tamalaka, the Shahriyan, definitely. But I think it is definitely a step forward that we as Dutch, Indonesians, as scholars, as students, we talk about this and it keeps going. But I would like to ask if any of you wants to comment on this.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Yes, okay, I think we can have space for one more question. Maybe, yeah.
As a Dutch person who's who's been through the history curriculum given here in the Netherlands, it's interesting to see how little time in the Dutch curriculum is actually spent on the colonization of Indonesia. It's not given a specific chapter, it's always like a little subheading, and we also get this. Do you think it's important for Dutch history curriculum to give a greater emphasis on the colonialization now that we're nowadays like giving more awareness to the order things that were done by the Dutch? Do you think it's important to reflect this? We're giving it more space in Dutch history curriculum.
Thank you for your question.
Add to that.
Of course, go ahead.
Yeah, it brings to my attention that on the 2022, when the Prime Minister of the Netherlands said their apology to some states, some countries, Indonesia was not exactly mentioned as the states that were deeply colonized by them. It was mostly Suriname, Curaçao, and other Aruba and other Caribbean countries, but not Indonesia. We were not specifically mentioned that they colonized us, they did slavery to us, and etc. etc. And that led us to have no special privilege in the Netherlands while we suffered for hundreds of years. To answer that, I think that's one thing that I just want to add to that question. Consideration: why do we not? Why are we not considered as being colonized by the Netherlands?
Thank you for your questions.
I working now in a part of the Dutch school. Well, I really have a mixed feeling about expanding the narratives about Indonesia in the Dutch curriculum, national curriculum, because why I have this mixed feeling is also because I get to see the development of the interest of the students, which related also to a broader issue, job market. It ends there. So, well, yeah, being the practical me will say no. Let's stop there. But the other side of me, yes, please, we need more. So yeah, I cannot give you a 70-30% answer. I am still at 50-50 now. It will change one day, maybe, but today, at this moment, I am still at that 50-50. And also because I see in the Netherlands, we have the museums. We have that the museum in Den Haag that is especially built to cover these issues. Yeah, that, and then we have NEON, and also at the university level, we are fed with so many details of between the Dutch history and Indonesian history. So then it really comes back to the individual in the end, whether to what extent that you want to pursue the historical knowledge. And well, it's really good to expose students to many topics, many possibilities. It doesn't have to go in depth because also it's not their area. We're talking about the primary, 4 to 12 years old. Yeah, it has to be adjusted with the age, and that it will be different when we talk to students from 12 to 16, and then from 16 to 18. So I see that the content in history education are now being adjusted to the level of understanding, to the level of reading even. So which I see as a good progress, because then there is an awareness in the education sector, not just in the Netherlands, but we're talking about the global situation to to bring humanities and to teach about it into young people. And I hope that that the percentage will grow, because now we're still dominated by the math, science, the those fields which are also needed. So yeah, man, you make me torn. Thanks for that. So, but I'm really curious to see how the Dutch government will respond to that. For example, to the recommendation from last year from Jan Busemarker. And yeah, hopefully I also get to see how they will build the curriculum. Because when we're dealing with Dutch history, it's not just Indonesia, we also have the Atlantic parts, which are different model, different. It's a different story over there than what we have in the Indian Ocean part. So it's a future that we still have to see. Thank you.
Well, it sounds interesting for historian to put more emphasis on colonialism. But what kind of the question is what kind of narrative that you want to put in the curriculum? It might be counterproductive for the background nations, and for the the prime minister's proposals for in 2022. I think and the prime minister. I think because it will bring many consequences for us, not only in the political stage, but also financial. I think that's the reason.
Thank you both very much. And yeah, I hope that also like answers your questions. And I think we can now close the question and answer session. It was great. It was really interesting listening to both of you, and it was very dynamic as well. Also from you guys, very different opinions as well. It was really interesting to see. Yeah, I think now looking at the time as well, we don't really have time for the discussion session, but we kind of already did during the Q&A. So I hope this was informative to you all. I hope you guys can have some main takeaways from this. And yes, it was really nice to moderate this discussion. And thank you guys so much. Thank you to both of you so much. And yes, see you at the next FG session.
Thank you for once again to our panelists and our moderator. To express our gratitude, we would like to present a small appreciation to our speakers and moderator. I would like to invite Ia as our project officer to come forward and present with you. Fellow students and participants, we will now take a short break for approximately 45 minutes. Please be back in your seats by 13:45 for the start of our second forum group discussion, where we will explore the theme of archives and migrant workers. For those who haven't got the chance to register for FGD, we would like to inform you guys that it's now open for public. And then for the FGD, it's not in this room, it's going to be in other room. There will be our person that's going to talk about it. And for now, enjoy your break. And then after that, you can get a free food from us. And then for the person that already paid, you can get a refund from us. Thank you so much and have a good break.